Go ahead and get started, please. I assume the live stream's up and going. If it's not, it'll catch up with us. Hey, welcome tonight. My name is Mark Atherton. I'm a pastor here at Xenia Nazarene, and we are for Xenia. And one of the ways that we try to show that is by doing a lot of civic-minded stuff, and this is an example of this tonight. You, the audience, really, really important tonight because we're dependent on you for the questions. And so I think you've already seen, I've written some guidelines out on that little card. If you need a card, my son over here or Nathan Chrisman's son over here will bring one to you. If you've got a question that you're writing on the back of that card, wave it and one of these guys will see it and we'll get it. Here's one right here. And so you're going to take that. Hello, hello, hello. There you go. I was worried about keeping him off of his cell phone, but I don't know. Okay, all right. So we're going to go to about 8:30. Thanks for being here tonight, and I hope that after tonight is over that you'll be a more informed voter. I know that's what the 7 people behind me want. Too many times we just vote for our friends or vote for a personality, and that's why we get Good Old Boy Network. I want you to vote for people that believe like you do on the issues. And hopefully we can clarify that tonight. And I see my job tonight is distinguishing between these candidates, helping you to distinguish between the candidates, that one candidate stands here and another candidate stands here, and that will help to inform you just a little bit better. As a pastor, let me say this. God is into politics. And do you know why he's into politics? Because 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31 says, "In everything you do to the glory of God." So I pray tonight that everything that we will do, whether it's moderation, whether it's answering questions or asking questions, we'll do that to the glory of God, because God is very concerned about that. And let's pray as we start tonight. Father, you're very concerned about what goes on in our world, and you're concerned spiritually, but you're also concerned on the way that we conduct ourselves in all areas, and one of those is in the political area. So whether we're a candidate or whether we're a voter, may we do that to the glory of God. May we do that in such a way that is pleasing to you, and that would certainly come under the heading of tonight's forum as well. Lead us and guide us in all that we say and do, and we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. I'll have an opening statement from our candidates, and I'm going to start with Sarah tonight. And I've already kind of clued them in on their opening statement and just asked them. They're going to have a minute and a half, and you all can see that a minute and a half right there. And when it gets down to, I think, 30 seconds, it'll go red, so you'll know just a little bit about your time. If you go over that, don't get mad at me when I interrupt you on that kind of stuff. But they're going to give us an opening statement. They're going to talk a little bit about who they are and why they're running, and then one thing that distinguishes them from the candidate or candidates that they're running against. And that's going to be our opening statements, and each of them will have about a minute 30 to do that. And we're going to start with Miss Sarah.
Thank you. Well, I am Sarah Mays, and I am running for re-election for mayor. Previous to that, I served on council, and previous to that, I actually volunteered on one of the commissions. I wanted to get in and just be a volunteer through our city. I was born and raised here in Xenia. I love Xenia. My husband moved here when we got married, and we chose to stay here to raise our family, our 3 young kids. I am a huge advocate for Xenia. I am constantly shouting for her and trying to advocate for her. By charter, as mayor, I am one of 7 votes. We are equal in what we can do. As mayor, you don't have a double vote or anything like that. What really distinguishes being mayor is the ceremony and is the events. That is where you have an opportunity to start building those bridges and those relationships. I am very proud of the relationships that I have built at the base with the different commanders that have been there. I'm really proud of the relationships that I have built with the different universities locally, Central State, Wilberforce, Clark State, the relationships at the county level, at the different community level, and the different institutions. So those relationships are how you start seeing Xenia prosper more and more. more, because then you can start finding out what is the need over here at the base or at a job, and we can connect those with the institutions and make sure we're building that appropriate workforce or recruiting different businesses to come here. That takes a relationship, and you do that through those different events and building that rapport and advocating for Xenia and seeing her shine. I love being a steward of Xenia and being an advocate for her.
And thank you, Sarah. And I'm going to give you a little grace here, because there's one part of the question that I'd really like for you to answer, and that what distinguishes you from Dale?
Well, I would say that's probably right there is one of the biggest things, is that I believe strongly in the event, in the ceremony, that is the biggest part of how you build those bridges. I think that having those relationships and being respected in the community and being somebody who is approachable is a really big piece of it, and I believe firmly in it.
Thank you, thank you. Dale, it's your turn, please. Just an opening statement from you.
Hear my knees pop. My name's Dale Utterback. I'm a candidate for Mayor Xenia. I believe in God, family, and country in that order. I'm glad to have my wife here, beautiful wife of 54 years, my son. And like I said, I love Xenia, and there's some things that saddens me about Xenia, and I think we need some change. Number one, we lost population in the latest census. A lot of you people don't know that. There's several reasons for that. I'm not going to blame it all on the city of Xenia. If I was elected mayor, I'd put the inspection back in-house. That's a big problem. So paving our streets, that's high on our agenda, and I can do that without raising your taxes. I'm a fiscal conservative, don't believe in raising your taxes. The third thing, and I'm running out of time, we have a serious problem in this town with the homeless. I don't want cold-hearted. The good Lord will help people that helps themselves, but the homeless in this city is driving businesses out of the city. And third, lastly, our 2 1/4 income tax is one of the highest in the state. If I'm elected, I will try to lower that income tax. Thank you.
And Dale, let me ask you, and you may have said some things, but one thing that distinguishes between you and Sarah, that is differences that you have.
My experience.
Your experience. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next, please, I have Will. Will Urschel, would you have an opening statement, please?
Sure, thanks. My name is Will Urschel, and running for one of the 4-year city council seats. I'm currently on city council. I was appointed to fill the seat of Dr. Wallace when he passed away last fall. My wife and I came here 35 years ago with the Air Force, and we've made Xenia our home ever since. We love serving in this city. I retired 3 years ago from the Air Force after having 33 years with the service as the technical director out at the base. But we retired and decided to stay in Xenia because we love serving here, and we've been serving here for the last 35 years. Started off in youth ministry at my church and worked in a number of other ministries, and up to being a pastor now at Emmanuel Baptist as well. Over those years, I've also served in many community organizations, in education and social services, and also coordinating across the churches in our city, working on getting unity within our city, within the community of faith, and had a leadership position in many of those organizations as well too. And I just choosing to run this year because I think I got the wisdom and leadership experience and community connections to help us become a prosperous community for all of our residents. And I think what sets me aside apart, I'm not going to bring Reagan's campaign comments that I'm not going to make anything out of the youth and inexperience of my opponents, but I have years and years of involvement in our community, and I'm not looking to be elected so I can serve. I've already been serving for decades.
Thank you. Thank you, Will. Levi.
Hi, my name is Levi Dean. I'm running for Xenia City Council. Just a few things about me. I come from a rather large family, and that family are 5 small family businesses. Growing up, I was forced, sometimes against my will, to work in those businesses, and so I've got lots of small business experience here in the community. I know what it takes to start up a business here in Xenia. I know what it takes to own and operate a business here in Xenia, and so I've got that experience, private sector experience. A few key issues for me here. First one is infrastructure. Our roads are in bad shape. We've got to bring more money to the roads. A short-term solution is some of the stimulus dollars, bringing those to the roads to fix that. And the longer-term solution, it's got to be economic development. We've got to grow our tax base. We've got to bring more businesses, attract businesses, and allow the businesses here that are currently here to grow and thrive. I think with my small business experience, I know how to do that, and that's some of the things that separate me. Another key issue is public safety, police and fire. We've got to make sure that they've got the resources they need to keep our community safe. I'm 100% against defunding the police. I want to make sure that they have the things that they need. But that's it. Thanks.
Okay. And that'll take us to Ethan, please.
Sorry. Hello, my name is Ethan Reynolds. I'm running for Xenia City Council because Xenia is home for me. Not only is it home for me, but it's home for my entire family. My sister lives here with her husband, and my nephew's and niece. My parents live here. My baby sister lives here. I live here. My nanny, who is 85 years old, is about to live here. So this is a personal thing for me. I love this community. This is my home. I chose to run for city council because I believe that experience matters, like Will said, and I have that experience. I balanced multiple million-dollar budgets. I have that experience. 3 quick things that I believe in. I want to make sure that we have balanced budgets, because nothing else will matter unless you can make sure the budget is balanced and you're spending money appropriately. Number 2, I'm not going to defund police or fire. I mean, we have to make sure those individuals have the resources to protect themselves and our community. And the third, and I think one of the most important ones also that we definitely have heard when I'm knocking doors and during these debates that we've had, is roads. I mean, you can go down the list of them. I mean, we need to fix our roads, and the way to do that is to chip and overlay, which is a fraction of the cost, and making sure we use the ARP funding correctly and maybe shift money from where ARP funding can go to free up general fund money to fix roads. Something that does differentiate myself from Levi and Will. One, Will and I wear glasses, Levi doesn't. Number 2 is youth. I love the Reagan quote because that's my favorite debate moment against Walter Mondale. But I think someone new is going to be needed to have a new vision for the future of this city. Because we're at a really crossroads to go forward, to the future, or back to the past. And
Thank you so much, Ethan. I appreciate that. Okay. Wes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
All right,
can.
very good. Mark, thank you, and thank you for the
Absolutely.
Nazarene Church for hosting us tonight. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Wow, it's a great crowd. I wish we had this many people at our council meetings, but we don't. And that's a good thing, because as a council member, we're here to represent the entire body, the entire city. And Shelley and I, we moved to Xenia in 1998 to raise our family. We were members of Northside Christian Church at the time. In 2005, I moved my business to the community. In 2009, I ran for council. In 2010, I became a council member, and I've represented Xenia proudly to have that privilege and honor to represent not just Republicans, but Democrats and independents, because by charter, our city council is nonpartisan. During that time, I've had the experience of serving as your president on council and your vice president. I've chaired committees such as BRCA, planning, budget, and traffic. And I feel as a steward for the community, we look at every line item before we make a vote. Your tax dollars, we spread those out as thinly as we can. We hit the areas as much as possible, but you got to understand 83% of our budget in the city is for personnel. Most of those personnel are fire and safety, which is very important as a council. So thank you.
And real quickly, Wes, is there one thing that comes to your mind quickly that distinguishes you from Jeremy?
Okay, so one question people have is, why are you just running for the 2-year seat?
Right.
A little different this year. There's 3 running for the 4-year seat, and there's a 2-year seat. That 2-year seat is due to the passing of Dr. Wallace, who was our vice president on council. That created an appointment and then a election for the last 2 years of his office. I'll be quite frankly with you guys, I did not want to run against Will Urschel. So I split. I decided to go for the 2 years. I've served the city for 12. For 2 more, I felt like experience is necessary. Other than Mayor Mays, all of our council has 4 years of experience or less.
Great. Thank you, Wes.
Thank you.
All right. And Jeremy?
Yes, my name is Jeremy Cox. I'm an Afghanistan veteran running for City Council. I'm running on a pro-federalism, pro-private property rights, and pro-senior road repair platform. I believe the local government is the last firewall of defense when the federal and state governments are out of control. My experience includes lifetime membership with the NRA and serving as a campaign volunteer for President Trump. This is the experience I bring to the table in an age where cancel culture runs amok and where patriotic parents can't even take an interest in their own children's education without being labeled as domestic terrorists by the Biden regime. This is why I'm running for such a time as this. I believe with your support on November 2nd, we can make Xenia great again. I am opposed to defunding the police, and I am asking you to please check the box for Jeremy Cox. Thank you.
And something that distinguishes you from Wes.
I am willing to associate myself with President Trump on my literature.
Okay. All right. My technology guy that is sending me questions here that are coming from you all via text or written down has put in bold print most questions on this subject so far. So I'm just going to start with that one. And we'll start with Dale this time. And the question, and I'm just going to read it straight off of this iPad right here. Will you turn down stimulus funds tied to COVID-19 vaccines? Question mark. Where do you stand on vaccine mandates and other COVID restrictions? 1.5 minutes, starting with you, Dale.
I'm 100% against mandates, vaccine mandates. If I was elected, I would not let our employees be mandated for the vaccine. So, very simple answer to that question.
And the other part of that question, would you turn down any stimulus funds that are tied to some type of COVID mandate, vaccine mandate?
Yes.
Okay. Then we're going to go to Will for the next question. Okay, I'm just going to kind of alternate it around. Sarah, you'll be last this time.
Yeah, same question?
Same question. And let me repeat it just again. Will you turn down stimulus funds tied to COVID-19 vaccines? Where do you stand on vaccine mandates and other COVID restrictions?
Yeah. So I'm an engineer, and we base most of our work on models and simulations and accuracy within that. And I'll just tell you, I've read a lot of the medical journals on COVID and the COVID vaccines. I do that with anything that I get involved with and try and get the ground truth. I have a son who's an immunologist and spent a lot of time talking with him and how he's had discussion with his friends. And one of the things I've observed about the medical practice, though, is they don't know much about the human physiology. And they do all of their work basically through group studies and results of those studies. And I really don't believe that they have enough information at this time to give us the assurance that a mandate is going to be good for everyone in the public. So no, I think if the vaccine's available, you need it's between you and your physician. You need to get smart and read up on yourself about that. Talk over your physician. I'd never be in a position where I would mandate that to any of our employees, and I would also turn down any money that would be the golden handcuffs to say, if you take this, you have to do that mandate as well. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Will, please. I mean, Will. Oh, I've already did Will. I'm sorry. Levi, please.
Yeah, I would definitely be opposed to any sort of vaccine mandates for employees, and if it was tied to stimulus dollars, I would tell the federal government and Joe Biden to, go pound sand, essentially. I co-authored earlier this year, along with Cody and Rebecca, a resolution asking the governor to rescind the current COVID restrictions, the mask mandate, the business shutdown, and the curfews. It failed at council, but I'm obviously against mandates from the government. I think that each individual employee should have the right to their own private decisions through their doctor, and we should not interfere with that. If they want the vaccine, they can get it. If not, they don't.
Okay, and that moves us to Ethan.
Absolutely not. I would not accept any federal money whatsoever that's tied to vaccine mandates. It's personal choice. It's not government's job to tell you what to do with your life. And if the money is absolutely needed, I'm still going to tell them no. I mean, we're going to have to tighten our belts. That's what it's about. This federal overreach from, Biden and the woke liberal extremists in D.C. is coming. And it's not something to laugh about, as someone did earlier. I mean, this is a huge issue. They said, if it ever gets to us, we'll be in trouble. Well, it's already here. We're already in trouble. They're doing it to small business currently, if people think that it's not going to come to local government, they're crazy, because that's how they get their agenda passed, is by tying it to money, because that's how they do it. So no, I'll tell President Biden and the woke liberal extremists, no, you guys can slither on back into DC swamp, and we'll make sure to take care of ourselves here in Xenia. And that's just that.
Okay, Wes?
All right, thank you very much. My answer to that is I do not believe in a vaccine mandate. I do believe that is a personal choice. I believe our city manager also holds that same respect and decision. And our city is not mandated any of our employees to receive a vaccination. However, many of them do work in the healthcare industry, so they have advised them for their benefit. If they would like to have that vaccine, they certainly can. Because COVID has hit our police and fire department a little hard. We've had people out, and that has caused some overtime issues this year. But we're still keeping the streets safe with the staff that we have. But as far as mandates for vaccination, they're not going to work. Just recently, you can see how the failure of Southwest Airlines with their employees basically told their management where to go with that and shut that airline down. So again, that's a personal choice, and I would not advise anyone to accept money because of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Wes. Jeremy?
So, I would not. I am opposed to vaccine mandates. I believe if you want the vaccine, you should get it. If you don't want it, then you shouldn't get it. And that should be the end of the conversation. Anything more than that, in my view, is un-American. In regards to other COVID restrictions, my father passed away from cancer last December. He received his first dose of chemo and then tested positive for COVID. And despite having no symptoms, he was denied hospital access for 14 days. After this, the doctors told us that the chemo had completely destroyed both of his kidneys, and he passed away 2.5 weeks after that. My father was a victim of the second and third order effects of COVID restrictions, the same COVID restrictions that City Council failed to oppose when they voted down a resolution calling on Governor DeWine to lift all COVID restrictions in the state. I recognize that public policy has real-world implications. That's why I side with dangerous freedom over peaceful tyranny, and I will be a friend of your right to say no.
Sarah, the pressure's on you to make it unanimous, I guess. I don't know.
It will be unanimous. I believe very firmly that your health care is your business. People have asked me many times if I'm vaccinated, and I refuse to answer because that's a decision between myself and my doctor and my husband. So I believe firmly if you have a vaccination, you believe in that, go for it, and if you don't, go for it. But I do not agree with mandates, and we have not had to make that decision yet, but I agree it is coming. And I understand that at this point, the federal money is actually going through the state for us at this point. But should there be a tie to that mandate, I don't think, as you see, any of us would support mandates. Thank you.
Okay. And since there's no difference, I would guess that all of us that are interested, and evidently a lot of people are interested in that question, we would just make sure that they stick to what they said on whoever is elected in all of this, okay? This is the next question that is kind of coming, not just in order, but the amount of people that have asked. Will, you'll be the first one to answer on this. Regarding economic development, what will you do to bring businesses and jobs to the city of Xenia? I don't know if I'm just speaking for myself, but we hear lots of candidates for all areas. They say, well, we need to bring in more jobs, we need to somehow cut spending, but they never say how it is you're going to do that. So I guess what I'd like to kind of, for all of you, is pin you down just a little bit. Regarding that economic development, what can we do? Not just generically, we got to bring businesses. What is it that we can do to bring businesses and jobs to the city of Xenia? What are your plans to develop all businesses in Xenia? Not just, we hear a lot about Town Square, as we should, but not just the Town Square, all businesses in Xenia.
So I think one of the fundamental things that we need to provide here in the city is an infrastructure that's appealing to businesses to want to come in. So if you go out to the business park right now, those roads are probably about the worst shape of anywhere in Xenia right now, and that's not an appealing thing for a new business to show up at. The first thing that I think we need to work hard on is to stop building new infrastructure within our city and stop saying we're going to continue to grow out from our city and build new infrastructure, because we can't even maintain what we have right now. So I would really encourage businesses that are going to come and utilize the existing infrastructure we already have in place. And there's a lot of it in the city already. And so things like the town square, as that's built out, I think that's going to be a tremendous, and I would also encourage us to look towards building in towards the center of the city instead of continually building out from that perspective. So the town square development is going to be great because it's new development and new wealth without any new infrastructure on the city. The EV building, which is down on South Detroit Street, getting that up and running with multiple businesses in it doesn't require any new infrastructure for the city to support. The Hoove and Allison property, which we're hopefully close to being able to sell and get some new productive use there, would be a great use as well too. I think the other thing is we need to look at and you're going to hear this from a lot of candidates too, talking to our businesses and saying what is it that would help you, both our existing businesses and the new ones that are coming in. So
Thank you, Will.
Sure, the inspections with the city, we got to bring that back to the city. It may cost us some more, but it's going to help us from
All right, Will, thanks so much on that. Levi.
Yeah, thank you. Dale and Will mentioned it there at the beginning. A big thing is inspection services from the county. Whether we bring that out indoors to the city, or we contract through a private contractor, that's huge. I know this as a plumber.
Hey, let me stop you right there. Let's stop the clock. And just for some people out here, me included, that may not know exactly what you're talking about on outsourcing all of that, give us just a few minutes, and then we'll start the clock on your answer again.
So currently, each city or municipality or township, they can contract with who they want for inspection services. They could do it themselves. They could contract with a private contractor, or then the county, they could go underneath their umbrella. A few cities like Fairborn and Cedarville kind of do their own thing. Most other cities go along with the county.
Okay.
So that's kind of how.
So we contract that out with the county.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Go back to your answer now.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So with that, whether we bring it in with a private contractor or bring it in house, it doesn't really matter to me. I know this is a big deal to me personally because as a plumber, I have to pass county inspections all the time. And the big complaint for me, and that we hear from businesses and developers, is they're not pro-growth, they're not growth-friendly, they aren't development-friendly. They delay our projects for months and months and months. And anyone who's starting out a small business, they know that 6 months of lost revenue could be the make or break of whether your business is successful or not. So when you have that in the county, it definitely creates a problem. Now, personally, I would like for the county to step up to the plate and do the job right. But if they're unwilling to do that, then we've got to either bring it back in or privately contract it out. But it would be a lot better for them, and for us and for everywhere, if we could just have one set of rules for the entire county for inspections. Because I know when I go into different communities and I have to pass this set of rules or that set of rules, I got to learn a whole new inspector, I got to learn a whole new book that you got to go by. It makes it a lot harder. So I would like for the county to step up to the plate and get their act together. And that's one thing. I don't have enough time to catch on the other thing, but I think the homeless issue, and I hope that question is asked later on, but that's another thing that I think with economic development.
Okay. And just a real quick follow-up. So we contract out to the county now. If we did it ourselves, would it cost any more money than we are currently paying the county to do it?
It depends how you set it up.
Okay.
You could or you might not. You know, the city could contract it out and just go at no profit at all. They could take in a little bit of profit. They could pay the exact same rate as the county. It really just depends on how you set it up.
Okay. And if anybody would disagree with that, you can answer that in your question. We're going to Ethan now, please. Same question.
So for economic development, I mean, everyone's, like Pastor said, talks about bringing jobs in. Well, what brings jobs in? Well, number one, you have to have the infrastructure, and I think bringing the inspections in-house is important. But here's another one. Jobs Ohio rates cities on how business-friendly they are. I'm willing to go call up Jobs Ohio and meet with them in Columbus and say, hey, what do you recommend to make Xenia more of a friendly place to do business? That's something that we haven't done, and that's something that needs to be done, number one. Number two, when you start your American dream of starting a business, the first thing you don't want to do is go to City Hall and spend $310 in different permit fees. That is dire for small business. When you're first starting out, you're not making money already. So the issue is you have to now go visit the tax man, and I oppose that. I think we should eliminate those fees. We should be more welcoming to business, because that's going to draw people in, is by saying, hey, we're welcoming you by not having you charge these exorbitant amount of fees. One. Two, Levi touched on it, but it's really important, homelessness. I mean, if you go downtown and you talk to any business owner, and I've done it with almost all of them, they all say, Ethan, it's hard to get people to come downtown when they don't feel safe or secure to shop here. So that's also ties directly in to downtown development and bringing business here. No one wants to come here if they feel like their customers are going to be accosted. So that's something we need to address also by, anti-loitering ordinances. I'm out of time, but, that's just my belief.
Okay, appreciate it. Wes?
All right, so economic development, that is a hard one because Xenia is competing with the entire state of Ohio for those businesses, and it's a global competition now. As more and more people are working at home, more and more businesses are employing their people from their homes. It's going to be a tough sell, but I think we've had success in Xenia. If you look at the area around Progress Drive, Hospitality, Aldi's, those popped up in the last 4 years. The YMCA, the REACH project. What we'd like to do there, we'd like to bring to Xenia Town Square. And when the city worked with the Dillon Corporation to send out surveys, we got 1,200 surveys from members of our community on what they would like for Xenia Town Square. As a council member, we want that feedback because we are representing you. We want to know your interests, your concerns. So I think that same amount of information that we got from Xenia Town Square, we need to continue to solicit that so we can continue to work with economic development. We have an economic development team in Xenia and a planning department, and that's their job, is to promote our city. And it's a tough sell, but we're trying to keep Xenia affordable and trying to grow Xenia the best we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Wes. Jeremy?
I have read Economics 101. Sometimes I wonder if members of Congress have. I am pro-Xenia business. I'm endorsed by 3 of them, and I support the elimination of startup fees to attract new businesses. Touching on the homeless issue, I know that's interconnected with everything else. I recognize the homeless problem for the humanitarian issue that it is. I've seen the homeless people with their signs standing by the road. I've even stopped, tried to help them out of my own pockets. However, I believe our top priority needs to be to take care of our own Xenia residents first, and I believe we need to send a clear message to neighboring cities not to pawn off their homeless population on Xenia taxpayers.
Okay, Ms. Sarah.
Well, I'm going to be the person who beats the drum of relationships, and I'm going to use you an example, actually, because on Thursday at council, we are voting. I will not be able to vote because it's a relationship that I have, but we're voting on selling the H&A property, the Hooven and Allison property, something that has sat vacant for years, and that's because of a relationship that I have where somebody called me and said, hey, I want to send somebody to you who's considering expanding their business. And we were able to talk on the phone, and I could connect them to our economic developer. And now, here we are a few months later, and there's a new business coming to Xenia who's bringing jobs. It's not a lot of jobs at first, but it's going to be in phases, and I'm thrilled with that because it's all comes back to we can talk a good game, but if you don't have that relationship where somebody can call you and say, hey, what do you have? What can we do? And then I can say, here's 3 properties to look at. I'd love to meet you out there. Let's talk through this and what's going to work for your business. I had an opportunity to sit down with the leadership at Clark State recently to talk about with some of the area businesses. What are the challenges you're facing with workforce development, and how can we build those jobs up? And they're working on developing certifications that are going to match what is needed, and that's through those relationships and building those forward. So I think that it's absolutely being business friendly. It's absolutely working with some of the inspection issues, but it's about having those relationships so that people know they can come here. We're going to advocate for them. I advocate for them, and we're going to make it work.
Thank you, Mayor. Dale.
I think everybody's mentioned what I had in my opening statement, but our income tax is a biggie. 2.25% income tax. We have the reputation, people don't like to hear me say this, of being anti-business. And I deal with other communities as a businessman, and we do have the reputation as being anti-business. Economic development, non-growth. What we need to do, if I'm elected, I'm going to make some serious choices. We've missed Walmart warehouses, Amazon warehouses, Chewy dog food warehouses. I can go on and on and on. We have an economic development program that he has done nothing. So if I was elected with the help of council, we would make some serious changes to bring good paying jobs, not Progress Drive, Walmart, and Hampton. I'm talking about good paying jobs, jobs that you can raise a family on. You know, we lost the Super Value Warehouse. That was one of the biggest losses Xenia ever had. But you could raise a family on those wages. So I'm not interested in the mom and pop little nickel dime jobs. We need to bring some good development. And again, I'll make the tough choices because, like I said, Xenia's not growing. We're going backwards. We need to turn the bus around or we're going to be in serious problems.
And you mentioned we lost a Walmart warehouse and a couple of other things. What could we have done to not lose them?
Well, if I'd have been mayor, I'd been sitting with the CEOs of those companies. If our economic development and city planner won't do it, I'll do it. That's their job, that's their full-time job.
Right.
$100,000 plus, both of them.
Okay.
And in the last few years, it's non-existent. Okay. And if somebody wants to debate me on that, tell me what good-paying jobs as our economic development department brought.
And Sarah, I'll allow you to respond to that. As someone who's lived here 11 years, that's first I've heard that we lost this and lost that and lost this. Would you just respond to what Dale has said?
Well, it's the first I've heard of some of that too. So I can tell you there have been some opportunities that we have not been able to disclose that we did lose. But I can tell you I was on the site visits. I met with those people. And I was there to advocate for Xenia, to all but beg for them to come here. Our city manager has absolutely been involved. There was one possible opportunity. We did, in my opinion, we did everything we knew to do and then some, and that included visiting with those people that Mr. Lauterbach has mentioned. And it came down to us and one other site. We didn't have rail. I can't change that we don't have rail. And then if that's just one example.
That's one. Thank you very much. Let's move to another question that we've already touched on, and most of you have touched on in your answers, and it's obviously the homeless issue. It's a long question right here, but let's just and we're going to start with Levi this time. Levi, what are some in your mind? What are some changes that need to happen in Xenia as we look at the whole homeless challenge and issues that we have? What are some changes, some different things that need to happen?
Yeah, obviously the homelessness crisis, it's a big issue, and I'm all for helping those who are less fortunate than myself through private means. I'm opposed to the city subsidizing those places or whatnot, and if you want to donate money to Bridges of Hope or whatnot, great, use your private dollars, that's there's a plug for them right now. But it's a huge issue. One thing Ethan touched on, anti-loitering laws. We've got to get those down. We've got to get people who, get them out of downtown, get them help, get them rehabilitated. And quite frankly, if they aren't gonna go into full-time programming, if you can't get that going, we've got to force them through a safe and legal manner to move on. Because right now it's killing us. It's killing our businesses. It's killing our community downtown. Going door to door, especially in this neighborhood, they're scared when they send their kids out. They say, why, there's a homeless exodus out at 7:30 or whenever Bridges of Hope lets out. I don't want my kids walking through there. We know they've got mental health issues. They know they have drug issues. And I'm not saying that those people don't deserve our help, because they do. But if they refuse to rehabilitate, then we've got to move them on. And Jeremy touched on this earlier. We know that there's other communities that are sending their homeless to our community, saying, hey, there's a shelter here, go here, get out of here,
Right.
And we've got to put a strong stand and make a stop. I know they've talked to the city manager about that, and he agrees. If anyone sees any of that happening, please give me or somebody else a call on council because we need to get documentation of that.
And Levi, just kind of generically, we hear this, we need anti-loitering laws. Just real quickly, what does that mean then? An anti-loitering law means what?
So for instance, you couldn't squat or sleep on a park bench or whatnot in certain areas. I mean, you could designate the areas whatever you want, but you essentially wouldn't be allowed to hang out there or to sleep there or whatnot.
Okay. We're going to Ethan, same question, but maybe if the anti-loitering law would mean something different to you, go ahead and say that.
Well, Levi I touched on it earlier. Levi is correct. That's part of the anti-loitering law. There's other ways to do it. I mean, Albuquerque, New Mexico does this, and so does Akron. I mean, you're going to hear, well, the U.S. Supreme Court said it's unconstitutional. Well, not in Albuquerque's case. It's been upheld by the lower courts. And so this is the way you do it. You pass these anti-loitering laws where they say you can't be in front of businesses for so long. It's going to help them out. Number one. Number two, we have to pass these. 40%. I mean, this was a comment shared in 2020 at council. 40% of our police calls downtown are directly related to homelessness. That's actually making the city less safe because then our police can't actually tackle real crime that's happening. I mean, we're sending them downtown, and you can go anywhere. I mean, and people don't feel safe. I also oppose the taxpayer funding of the homeless shelter. I mean, that came up last year in April of 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, when we didn't know what our budget was going to be or where the money was going to come from. There was a push to taxpayer fund the shelter. I disagreed with that. I think that wasn't the appropriate way to do it. So anti-loitering laws are very important. We make sure that we do it in a safe and legal manner like Albuquerque. Number two, 40% of our calls downtown are related to homelessness. That's dangerous for the rest of the city. And three, we don't need to taxpayer fund this. I donate to the food pantry all the time. I donate to all sorts of different charity organizations, and that's what you need to do. I mean, this is a church issue, not a government issue. I mean, that's why we're called a people of faith to get out there and help those who are less fortunate than ourselves. I mean, I'm a born-again Christian evangelical, and that's what you do.
Thank you, Ethan. Wes?
Okay, so as a member of council, it's our job to embody integrity, and that integrity has to be displayed not just only in the words that we say, but in the actions that we do. And I believe generosity, the biblical meaning is it's a state of heart. It's not just out of your own wallet. And in 2020, during the COVID pandemic, council was approached with an opportunity to help Bridges of Hope with a $10,000 donation to keep the shelter open during COVID so homeless people had a place to stay during the pandemic, because we didn't know the ramifications of homeless people in showering in bathrooms and Speedway. So we wanted to give them a safe haven. That request was actually rescinded by Bridges of Hope, so they didn't receive any taxpayer dollars. That's the only time that was brought up. And that $10,000 would have been part of $50,000 that the county gave us as a city to use it with discretion. So again, I think when you look at the homeless issue in Ohio, we have 11,000 people in Ohio, according to 2020 U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness. 17% of those homeless are families, and 7% of those people are veterans. So it's not just Xenia that's seeing homeless, it's across Ohio and major cities.
Thank you, Wes. Jeremy?
Well, I am an advocate of private property rights. One of the businesses that endorse me is Country Blessings. They talk to me how they have people who come as soon as Bridges of Hope lets out, they come and loiter on their property. I really do believe that incentives matter, and if we can send a message to, again, neighboring cities, letting them know that, hey, this is Xenia, we don't want you to pawn off your homeless population on Xenia taxpayers at our expense. Like I said, I am willing to help people out of my own pockets, but I believe that needs to be a personal choice.
Okay. Sarah?
I'll start by saying, as a person of faith, I think it's very important to remember that everybody is created in God's image, and we all have an opportunity to fulfill a purpose that God has given us. We may not choose to do that, but we have that opportunity. So I just want to make sure that you understand that is my lens when we are talking about people who are struggling with mental illness or homelessness or addiction, all different parts of a puzzle. We actually, as a city, have started a task force. So in being solution-oriented, we've started the Heads Up Task Force. And over the last month, Sergeant Osborne and another person have been going out every single morning, Monday through Friday, and talking with some different folks. And just so you understand, it's about 10 to 12 people, not 30 or 40. About 10 to 12 people in some encampments and saying, one, what do you need and how can we help you find it? Because our faith community does have some amazing resources, and I'm very proud of that. So how can we connect you to those resources? If you're not interested in those resources or getting the help, then we do need to apply appropriate pressure under appropriate laws that can be upheld to say you need to keep moving because Xenia is not the right fit for you. So there is positive momentum happening. There has been positive results, and I have as well talked to business owners. There's been some really positive results. I just also want to say that as somebody who lives downtown and has foot traffic constantly, we make sure that we get to know people's names. My son said to me, Mom, that guy, maybe we should make him a meal, and we did. And they called him by name, and if we see him, we call him by name. He is not dangerous to us. And I'm not saying it's okay to live on the streets under your own rules and do your own thing, but it's important to understand the individual, to get individual help.
Thank you.
And then to keep things moving that direction.
Thank you, Mayor. Dale?
You know, the other day I was at McDonald's having lunch in the parking lot, and I know a lot of the homeless. I know who they are. I had my window rolled down. This gentleman says, Sir, I'm hungry. Well, can you buy me my lunch? I said, I'll tell you what. I'll make you a deal. McDonald's is hiring. I'll go in with you. You file an application, and I'll buy you anything you want to eat. He turned around and walked away. Like I said earlier, the good Lord will help those that help themselves. I was never for Bridges of Hope. I voted against it because Simon Kenton is a money pit. They went one winter without heat there. So I was never for Bridges of Hope, and I understand Bridges of Hope might have a 24/7 operation in January, and that will help. I'll admit that. But the homeless is a serious problem, and I will mention one more thing. Nobody else wants to seem to mention, but we've got a rehab center downtown called D-Coach. That's the center of our problem downtown. It's a rehab center. They bus people in to get their medications, and they congregate, and they cause disruptions in our downtown district. And D-Coach is our biggest problem downtown.
Will?
So we just have a homelessness issue in Xenia. We have a poverty issue in Xenia. About 20% of our families are living in poverty. And the homeless are just the tip of the iceberg because those are the ones that are visible. And I'd also say this, homelessness isn't just for adults. We've got 2 shelters in town that are dealing with families, and they're full. These are single moms with kids, and you got a lot of moms with kids that are sleeping in places they shouldn't be, okay? And we desperately need to become alongside them as well, too. I've heard a lot of people talk about the homeless thing, and we're going to do laws and do those kind of things, and I'll just tell you, about a year and a half ago, I just said, hey, be part of the problem, be part of the solution, okay? So I stepped up, got involved with the board of Bridges of Hope, and earlier this year, listen, I believe in work. I agree with Dale. And so I started a program to get guys and gals going out and working on the street, picking up trash, painting the curbs, cleaning the sidewalks, and doing those kind of things. And let me tell you, I brought a ton of people downtown last Saturday, homeless, okay? But you know what? They all had yellow vests on. They were cleaning the town up, okay? And they were proud of their work. We picked up over 1,000 bags of trash this year, okay? We put over 1,000 cubic feet of mulch out in various places and the beds of the places. So if some of these guys would stop putting all their money in their campaigns, they put over $30,000 in their campaign. They'd give that to me. We'd have the homeless working 7 days a week, and we wouldn't have a homeless problem.
All right, Will, thank you. I think this is an area, it seems like that we have some disagreement, and we can distinguish between the candidates. Let me ask this question. And I hope it's a fair question. It's not one that's listed right here, even though we have lots of questions concerning the homeless situation. Would you raise your hand, please, if you believe there should be no city dollars, which are obviously tax dollars unless it's a grant, there should be no city dollars going to help the homeless? Is there anyone that agrees with that? There should be no city dollars that go to help the homeless. Okay, I just want to make sure everybody understands the question. There should be no city dollars that help the homeless. And you put yours down, and then Wes, obviously, you're okay with some amount of line item in the budget going to help the homeless. And just 30 seconds here.
And I'll answer that question because we have a line item in our city that's for discretionary spending that our city manager has availability to funds, and that's usually between $20,000 a year. I don't see a problem with helping a faith-based organization that is helping to solve the problem. Because, and I want to circle back on that, we tried the anti-loitering law about 4 years ago. We actually tried to prosecute someone for panhandling right in front of City Hall. City of Xenia got slapped with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit by that individual for infringing on their constitutional rights, because they do, even though they're homeless, they do have constitutional rights.
Thank you. Okay, let's word that another way. Dale made a pretty strong statement, and unless I misunderstood you, Dale, and correct me if I did, you feel like there should not be a Bridges of Hope in Xenia. Is that correct, or did I misunderstand you?
It should be funded by somebody.
Okay.
Let me back up. I was on the board of Community Action Partnership years ago when they was talking about bringing, we wanted to have a homeless shelter in Xenia, Community Action Partnership. I resigned from that so I could vote for them because they had the federal monies to fund. Bridges of Hope still doesn't have the funds. They never will have the funds. So, like I said, Simon Kenton, it'd take $1 million to renovate that. Bridges of Hope doesn't have $1 million. Community Action Partnership did. So yes, if I would have got my way, Community Action Partnership would have had a homeless shelter in Xenia, not Bridges of Hope.
I'm going to ask this question. I think I'm fair about it. I'm going to ask Sarah this question just because she's been there and has experience. I was told by a city person that is not up here on this platform who discouraged us from taking some of the space that we have across the street in the community center and making that taking a couple of families and really working to get them out of homeless. And the reason I was discouraged on that by a city person was that when they break the rules that you have, when they break those rules, you won't be able to get them out. Is that a correct statement? We had a desire to take some families.
Clarify what you mean by that.
We had a desire to take some families that wanted to better themselves, make little apartments in the community center across the street. And I was advised by a city person, and I'm not going to go any farther than that, but a city person that when they break whatever rules you have, you won't be able to legally get them out. Is that true or not? Do you know? And I'm just asking you to speak. You don't know, do you? And that's
to get them out of the apartment?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to, I don't know fully as far as how that would work with your property rights. I mean, I would think that there would be appropriate, if you own it, then you could go through the eviction process just like anybody else.
And I think what he was probably saying, the eviction process is so hard. I think that's probably what he was saying.
I mean, I think, though, that what I would want to address to that is that what I heard you say is when they break the rules. I think that the vision, though, is to work that whole person and to work that whole family. Because it's not just about putting somebody in a home or not just about getting somebody a job if you're not dealing with those underneath issues. As a person of faith, I'm going to say your first issue is Jesus. And I love what you're saying, though, is that you want to work with a family because you're bringing them to Jesus first and foremost. And then those other issues go from there.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Okay, I tell you what, I'm going to let you respond in this question that I'm going to ask everybody here, okay? And this question will start with Ethan, and it's still on the homeless issue, and it's a question that's written down here in bold print for me. How do we balance, Ethan, and some of you touched on it, how do we balance compassion and help for the homeless and what is best for the city of Xenia?
I don't think either side is mutually exclusive. I think we can, one, as a community, help out with homelessness, one, by donating your time or money or resources, and I think that goes not only to Bridges of Hope, but to the Battered Women's Shelter, or to the Xenia Food Pantry. There's other ways to do it. I mean, this is not an easy question that I don't think any of us are going to solve here tonight. I mean, we've been working on this for quite some time. Council has, I shouldn't say we, but council has been working on this issue. So, I mean, I think the way to do it is to be encouraging to the folks that you know to help out or donate money, whether it be to the Battered Women's Shelter or to Bridges of Hope. I mean, I every year we do a combined charitable campaign through my work, and every year they have a list of approved places to donate, and one is the women's shelter here. And every year I max out what the recommendation is from my employer. So that, I think we have to be compassionate with ourselves and with our churches, and making sure churches are activated. I just don't think that's government's responsibility. I think it's our responsibility, a family of faith and friends and family. So.
Thank you very much. Wes, how do we balance compassion and business and economic growth and development?
Okay, so on the homeless issue, we've talked to police, like Sarah mentioned. We have a task force that's working on that. There's about 10 to 12 individuals that will not seek help in the shelter. Those that are welcome to follow the rules, they are more than welcome if they prove that they are a county resident. And if I'm wrong, correct me, but only a county resident can stay at Bridges of Hope, or they are turned away. However, the non-loitering laws, those are really hard to enforce. And if you ask Gene Fisher, there's no room in a jail for them right now. If they arrest them, they're not going to keep them incarcerated. So they have nowhere else but to let them out. And so we need to look at what's the cause of the homelessness. And like Will said, we have a poverty issue in Xenia, and we have a breakdown of families in the United States. And until people recognize that life is precious, not just from birth, but to death, these people are still valuable in God's eyes, and they have a desire to unify their life to Christ, and their life should have meaning and purpose.
Thank you. Thank you, Wes. Jeremy's going to answer, and as Jeremy's answering, Nathan, would you come down here just for a second, please? Go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, I am also a Christian. I graduated from Xenia Christian High School, class of 2008. Earned my bachelor's and master's from Liberty University. For me, the bottom line with this is I don't believe it's a good idea for the state to replace the church or the church to replace the state. I believe it's the primary responsibility of the church as Christians to take care of the homeless and the needy.
Okay, and now we're going to go to Sarah.
So in that
compassion and business and economic.
Sure, absolutely. In that balance, I mean, we need to be solution oriented. And what we've talked about with the task force, Mr. Cox, brought up country blessings, and I remember having that same conversation with Rosemary and saying, what can we do? We talked about putting up no loitering laws at the business, and then there was the problem across the street at the Decide building, and we put up we contacted the folks that own that and said, can you please put up no loitering signs there? Because you can do that on private property, and when you do that on private property, you can enforce that. You've got to have that relationship with the businesses where you can say, this is what you need to do. Put up your signs, and if it's not being taken care of, then call the police, and we are going to deal with that. It's the public property that becomes that enforceable issue as far as making sure that there's somewhere to go 24/7 before you can enforce. So having compassion and seeing people for their value and who they are, but then also being solution-oriented and working with your businesses and saying, okay, this is your issue. Let's figure out how we can help. that took a couple of phone calls and asking questions and making sure we knew what the right solution was for that business or for the Desai building, and then enforcing that. Every morning, if there was stuff at the Desai building, it was moved every day, and it was thrown away because there's no loitering signs right there. That was somebody privately taking care of that. So, and then also in making sure that our police know who to call when they come up against this issue. So making sure they have the phone number of people at Bridges or people at SOS Ministries or Her Story or the New Emerge Project, and saying, okay, here's my list that I'm going to call because this is not working. So I see that this is something we need to enforce, but we have that compassion side, and I know immediately who to call to get this person help.
Thank you, Sarah. Dale?
You know, something that hadn't been touched on, and I think it's the most important problem. I know police officers from Oakwood, Fairborn, Trotwood, Springfield. They make a joke out of it. They're told to drop the homeless off in Xenia. Well, that's no joke to me. So I think our police chief, our city manager, and if I was mayor, I would have a meeting with all these departments and say, listen, no more dropping off your homeless in Xenia. That's a big, big problem. And 10 or 12 people, I count maybe 30 to 40 homeless people roaming around Xenia. It used to be not as big a problem in the last year and a half when these cities started dropping off their homeless in Xenia. It's become a major problem. And guess what? They don't have the same problem we do. So city manager, police chief, if I was mayor, I'd be knocking on these people's door and saying, no more dropping these people
And
off.
just to play devil's advocate just for a second, do you have the power to do that? And they would, so let's say, no, we're going to bring them anyway. What do you do? I don't know how the city, all that works, so I'm just asking out of ignorance. So they say, no, we're going to bring them anyway. Do you have some means then to enforce that?
No, I wish I did, but I don't.
Okay.
But I can advocate.
You can have.
I mean, yeah, I can be proactive
Right.
in addressing the problem. But me as a mayor, I can't call the police chief of Fairborn and say, no more bringing the people. I don't have that kind of a power.
Okay.
I'm one member of
Right.
council.
Right. Okay. All right. Will?
Yeah, so there's two classes of folks that are on the street. And there are those that are there because they didn't want to be there and they don't want to be there. And they're desperate to get out of that situation. And our job as a community, right? We're city hospitality, not avarice, right? That's what I think is up there on our signs, right? Is to come alongside and help those that desperately need some help, but they're just struggling. And no, I don't think CAP is the answer. I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. First off, there's a CAP office on Dayton Avenue that's been sitting open for 3 years. And you know what? They haven't put a person in there, and they're not committed to this community. They're committed to Dayton. They want you to come down Montgomery County, where you don't have any transportation to get there and get your services. But they're not opened up, and so they're not going to open up, okay? Second thing is, we don't want HUD funding. And let me tell you why. It's because when you come with HUD funding, it comes this thing called Housing First that came out of California. Look how well they're doing with their homeless problem. They basically say, we're going to try and get you an apartment by yourself as quick as you can, and once we get you there, we're going to treat you as a landlord-tenant, and we're not going to be involved with your life. If you have somebody that has some mental health issues or addiction issues, or the reason they're homeless is they couldn't make it on their own, and you're going to rapidly stick them in an apartment, guess what they're going to be? They're going to be homeless again in 6 more months, okay? So you need an organization that's going to come alongside and work with them and decide, you need to stay in a group environment so we can help you be able to live on your own. And the other thing I just say about, when I came on board with Bridges of Hope, they had some serious financial issues. Let me tell you, we've got a budget of $250,000 this year. We doubled our budget this last year. We just got donations about $130,000.
Thank you, Will.
We're going to get our permanent residency occupancy, and yes, we are going to be open 24/7 next year, and we're going to be walking alongside.
Thank you, Will. Levi?
Yeah, I mean, I applaud Will for his efforts with helping the homeless and getting them out and getting work done, cleaning up the city, painting curbs. I mean, I think it's a great initiative, and he's got a heart for that. And that's what we have to do as private citizens through financial resources or not, or time or whatever we have to give of ourselves as Christians or whatnot. It doesn't matter. Like, the community is supposed to take care of them, and that's the way that we can balance the compassion aspect. Now, from the governmental side, I don't think government should be involved in that. I don't think it's its role. I think the government has one role, and that's to provide infrastructure and to protect our freedoms and rights, and that's about it. But from the compassion aspect, I mean, get involved. Donate your time, donate your money. That's how we do it.
Well, let's kind of put you on the spot then, because here's a question that is right under the homeless issue as well, addressing the homeless issue. And under the homeless issue is the drug issue and all that's put together. But we'll start with Wes this time. And the question simply is, and this probably shouldn't take a minute and a half, but how are you personally involved in addressing this issue? How are you personally involved, the homeless issue, how are you personally involved in addressing it? And let's say this, and I'm not sure what the person meant here, but I'm going to read into this. How are you personally, outside of your official capacity as a government official, how are you involved in addressing this issue? You obviously have a job, but how are you, outside of your official capacity, how are you involved? And those that don't have an official capacity yet, how will you be involved outside of your official capacity? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, being a council member is tough. There's a lot of pressure on our shoulders because, I've had the privilege to serve for 12 years, and not every decision I made was popular, but one that is a true compassion of mine is to help those less fortunate. As a private citizen, I own a business and I employ people that care about the community, and I care about the community, and I've been with Will a few Saturdays picking up trash. I've been out there helping them spread mulch. I see the person behind the problem. And I think, again, it's no question, we're all Republicans running for office in a nonpartisan election. I don't think it matters how big the R is by your name, because I think as a party that values life, again, we need to value people. And I see value in the homeless because I don't want to give up on them. We do have some American Rescue Plan Act funds that are coming, $2.8 million by the end of next year. We got $1.4 million now. I don't have a problem with a small portion of that helping to get this problem taken care of.
Thank you. Thank you, Wes. Jeremy, the question is, how are you personally involved or will be personally involved outside of your official capacity in helping what everybody agrees is a big problem in our town?
I think the number one issue these people need above all else is to hear the gospel of Christ. The church that I go to places a pretty heavy emphasis on passing out gospel tracts to people. When I have seen homeless people standing by the road, I don't just throw money at them. I've actually given them food and water, and I have always maintained a supply of tracts in my possession to hand to them. The old expression, if you give a man a fish, you teach him, you feed him for a day, but if you teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. I really do believe in passing out tracts, and I believe that is even more powerful than handing out meeting the daily needs.
Okay, Jeremy. Sarah.
As far as personal involvement, that's something that I have helped some with some of the trash collection and working with different folks there. I'm not out every Saturday, but I've done some. But we've done that as a family. As I mentioned before, it's important for my family to serve together. We volunteer together. When we've done, I make it a point to, I talked about SOS Ministries, Jeremiah and Carolyn Bird and the work that they're doing, and getting to know those folks, but having that conversation. What do you need? How can I pray for you? And being able to resource them personally, and being a personal donor, as we've talked about, financially with some of these organizations, but then going to that next step and finding out who the person is behind that and what kind of things do they need. I've met with some people and done some mentoring and talked about, how can I play into your life? And having a personal relationship with people. The other thing that we've done as a family is volunteer through some of those different organizations that I've talked about, and we went through a phase where we were making a meal for one person in particular who was just having a really hard time. My kids know him by name. We would make him breakfast every morning, and we would take it to him, check on him, oftentimes pray with him. So that's just one aspect I don't talk about very often because I don't want to come off as a showy person or anything, but that's very important, that it's not just about the big picture that's important. It's that one-on-one relationship and developing a rapport and understanding where the real needs are.
Thank you. Dale?
I agree with the mayor. You know, it's a personal question. And people that know me personally, I've spent a lifetime of helping people. And I'm not going to blow my horn, but it's such a personal question. I've put people up in hotels. I've bought them meals. I don't even like to answer this question, and I don't know who asked this question. But I've got I'm a Christian. I've got a lifetime helping people. So that's all I'm going to say.
I understand. Will?
Yeah, so poverty is the first step before homelessness, okay? So I'm involved with the United Way, who's made it a big effort to start working alongside of families. We have a coalition of over 20 faith-based and other social service organizations. I'm helping lead that effort to come alongside to identify families that are struggling and get them good financial life counseling so that they don't fall into homelessness at that point. Okay, this is going to be a great model stepping out here. So United Way no longer in Greene County is just collecting money. They're actually going to step into this, and I'm really excited about this. And I've been working very closely with those folks. I also think that we need to, if you got somebody who's homeless and they have a wealth of problems, and we need to step up and work with them day by day. And you know, it's not an easy solution. It's not a one-day thing. Okay. So that's why I'm pouring my life into the folks over at Bridges of Hope, and to get us open for something we call the Day Hub, where we can bring in all the different resources that they need for the folks that want to do that and stay at Bridges, not wander around town when it's 20 degrees in January to try and figure out what to do. Okay. And I'll tell you, Councilman Smith and I have funded this work program all year long with our own private funds, and we've seen 5 folks graduate out of that, have their own homes now, one guy has his own business, 4 other ones are full-time employed, and let's give some folks some hope. When you talk about giving them a fish, if you eat for a day, teach them how to fish. When you stop putting people up in hotels and handing money to them, you need to send them to some folks who are actually going to be investing in their lives and helping them live a productive life.
Thank you, Will. Levi?
Yeah, Will kind of touched on it there, but you got to solve some of the issues before homelessness. Personally, I start most of my days around 6 a.m. and I get back home around 10 or 11 p.m. So I don't have a lot of time, but one thing I do have is I have money. So, I donate some of my money. I donate some of my skills as a plumber. I can't say I donate it to the homeless necessarily, but to Jeremiah Tree and the Tree House, I donate skills and money to them. The Miami Valley Women's Center, which helps take care of at-risk pregnancy women and families, I donate both time and skills to them as well. I wish I could donate more, but I only have so much of those resources, so some of them that I do donate, that's the organizations that I do. So.
Thank you. And Ethan?
So I mentioned it earlier, every year we do a combined charitable campaign through my work, and they list off places that are approved that have positive ratings from the Attorney General's office, because that's how they rate if you're a good nonprofit, essentially. And so they listed them out, and I max out every year to them through my work. That's 1. 2, during the height of COVID, I reached out to Gail. I said, Gail, what do you need? She said, we need money. I wrote checks, and I helped her out. And I helped raise money for her so that she could, because poverty is an issue. And people need obviously to eat, and so that's what the food pantry's for. So I helped raise money for that, and then I turned around and I dedicated Saturdays, and I worked there for multiple hours. At the time, it's the height of COVID, so you had to wear a mask, and you were out there, and you're pouring sweat, and you're moving these boxes for people. That's what it's about. It's servant leadership, and that's what I want to do.
Okay. As we leave the homeless issue, let me tell you something that God just put his finger in my back about, and literally did, not in an audible voice. But as I asked this question to Wes, what are you personally involved in outside of your official capacity? God just touched me in the back and said, well, Mark, how much are you involved outside the fact that you're the pastor of Xenia Nazarene? So this is a question for all of us here. And God didn't say that in an audible voice to me. But the thought came to my mind, well, if I'm going to put these guys on the spot, why can't we all be put on the what are we doing outside the fact that I'm a paid religious guy at Xenia Nazarene personally to help this very difficult issue in our city, okay? All right, let's move to Dora. There's a lot of questions on Dora, okay? And this we'll start with Jeremy, okay? Several Dora questions that I'm going to try to kind of combine here. What is your position on Dora, Jeremy? And for anybody out here that may not know that, give us 10 seconds on what Dora is. And then do you see Dora coming back to a vote with new council members? So what's your position, and do you see it coming back as an issue again?
Well, as for me personally, I never drink alcohol. That's what surrounds. My position is, well, I've heard the arguments for and against Dora, and my position is I believe City Council should not decide this issue at all. Rather, I believe it should be sent to the voters via ballot initiative. I believe they should make the decision one way or another, and just simply let your yes be yes and your no be no. Okay.
That's a pretty definite statement there. This should not be a council issue, in your opinion, and I want to make sure I'm understanding you. It should be put to the voters to vote on.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sarah.
When Dora came about, there was quite a bit of discussion. I received more emails and comments about the Dora issue than I received in my 6 years combined as an elected official. It literally was split down the middle. I would say half of the responses were against it and half were for. So it was really hard to make a decision as far as representing the whole community. I voted no on it because at the time, the footprint for the Dora was very large and it extended all the way over to the Ramada. Well, we have that huge empty space right now, and I did not see the benefit of having the Dora when you could walk that whole empty space with an alcoholic beverage in your hand. That did not make sense to me. So I understand that there was some economic benefits for it, and I am not opposed to that down the road. I very much think it'll come back to council for a vote, and my position has been, I want to see where we go with Xenia Town Square. In fact, this morning I was in a meeting and saw some of the first renderings for where we think we can go with the Dillon Group. And let me tell you, it's incredible. So once we start getting that development and having an actual direction, then I understand that we revisit it, because now we're revisiting it with businesses in mind that it makes sense for versus having voting yes to carry alcohol through an open parking lot.
Okay, and before Dale, just real quickly, for any people out here that may not know, real quickly, explain Dora.
Sure. Dora is a designated outdoor refreshment, thank you, area. And basically it sets a limit of where you can walk around with a specific type of cup that you have to purchase, that you can have alcohol in. And you have to have, the businesses can then have a sign on the door that says, yes, you can come in here with your alcoholic beverage, or no, you cannot. It was going to be set in the evening, which, by the way, there was only one business other than the bars that are open past that hour, which is the toy store. And I don't know that very many people need to go into a toy store with an alcoholic beverage. So that was another factor in it.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Dale, what's your position on Dora?
I support it. I've supported small business all my life, especially downtown revitalization. As I said earlier, everybody's leaving our downtown. Small business needs this kind of activity. And, some people say, you're going to have a lot of drunks walking around. No, there's restrictions, and there's police, and other cities have had it very successfully. And it's kind of funny because the Chamber of Commerce recently had an Oktoberfest that some members on this council voted no on DORA, but yes on Oktoberfest. What a big surprise. The same, but it cost the Chamber of Commerce thousands of dollars to do this event. If they would have had DORA, it wouldn't have cost them anything. So I don't know if these people that voted for against DORA and for the same concept, the Chamber of Commerce, would want to comment on that.
I'll give you an opportunity to comment if you'd like to, Sarah.
I did vote yes for that chamber event because it's a one-day event that was restricted to about 2 blocks. I felt comfortable with that for a one-day event. And speaking to the chamber, I asked very direct questions about that. Yes, it costs money to have that license, but that was all done through fundraising. It did not come a dime out of their budget.
Okay. Will, the whole DORA issue.
Yeah, so I appreciate what Jeremy had to say because I feel the same way. Let the people decide. But you know what? The people actually have already voted. This is the report we got from the Dillon Group. And one of the reasons I voted no earlier on is because I said, most people in town don't know that we even were going to be doing a DORA, okay? As I walked around and talked to people, I said, what do you feel about this? We didn't even know what's happening. But we were going to do a community survey later on in the summer. And I said, let's wait and get the community pulse. Because you know what? I've lived here 35 years in Xenia. I've got a pretty good sense of the pulse. And having a open carry alcohol in your downtown area is going to change the flavor of the city. It just will. And I having lived here and being with the folks here, my sense was people didn't really want this. And so what do you know? We did we surveyed 1,900 people with the Dillon survey, and DORA came in 5th in terms of the activities that folks wanted to see downtown. Okay, there's a lot of other things that people want to see, but the number one thing they said was, we want downtown to be family-oriented shopping and restaurants. And I want to key on that word, family-oriented, okay? And there's 26 different sub-county general purpose governments. In Greene County, there's only one who selected a DORA. There's 2,200 sub-county general purpose governments in the state of Ohio. Less than 5% have voted for that. So there's a lot of communities being very successful with economic development and downtown businesses, and they don't need open carry alcohol to
Thank you. Thank you, Will. Levi.
Yeah, DORA came up before council 3 separate times. I voted for it all 3 times. I had a question for when the business community, the downtown businesses, came to us with this. And I had a question, I had 2 questions. I said, will this spur economic activity? And will this increase criminal disturbances? So I went to the other communities, their police chiefs, their city managers that have the DORA. I asked them those 2 questions. I said, well, on the first one about economic activity, it depends on what type of businesses you have downtown. For instance, I think this would be a great thing for Devilwood Brewing. I think it definitely would help them for sure. And then on the second question, they said, well, no, there weren't really any increases in disturbances of disorderly conduct or public intoxication or whatnot. And so I kind of dug into that a little bit more. Why? Because I wanted to know why it wasn't that way. So I looked into that, and logically it makes sense. If you've got to go through a process to get approved a wristband or a cup in order to have your alcoholic beverages, you're not going to get approval from the permissive government and then go and do a criminal activity. And the more economic activity that happened in these downtowns, the criminal element fled more and more. So as the DORA in some of these communities was better, it actually made some of the criminal elements flee. So that's why I voted for it, because the business community said, hey, this will help us. We got 40, like Mayor May says, we got 40 in support. Almost every single one of them was a business here in the city of Xenia. I can't say I'm up here being all for revitalization of downtown or economic development. Then when we have something that the businesses say they want and need, then say, no, we're going to pass this on. Well, you know, it's election year.
Thank you, Levi. Ethan.
In regards to DORA, 60-plus communities across the state of Ohio have DORA, and the question is, should Xenia have it? Mayor Mays mentioned it best. There were 40 folks that voted in favor, 40 folks voted against. That's a 50-50 split. You know, Pastor, you worked on this issue directly. I think this honestly comes back to the people. Now, I do disagree with Will a little bit. I've knocked on thousands of doors, and people ask me about police and fire, roads, and the DORA. And it seems to be an even split amongst the general public. You know, I mean, council had voted to do the research. You know, 3 times, or 2 times rather, then they vote no, and then they vote, they want you to best. Downtown drinking 2 weeks ago. I mean, I just look at it this way. It's an election year. I think we should just stand firm and give straight talk. I'm not going to flip-flop around on the issue. I think it just should be decided by the folks, plain and simple. And will it come back up next year? The answer is absolutely will. Why? Because at the first candidate forum, one of the members said, this is just a temporary ban, but it'll come back. Well, I think we should have just either passed it or failed it if that's how you feel, instead of waiting till after an election year, just trying to kick the can down the curb. You just make your yes and your no be no.
Okay. All right. And that would take us to Wes.
Okay, so council was approached by city staff to look into a designated outdoor refreshment area, and council did vote to look into that. They came back with basically a map that encompassed the entire downtown area, including the Xenia Town Square. So basically, you could have an open container all the way from Ramada Inn and walk to Devil Wind Brewery with that. And so we looked at what would help downtown businesses that are closed after 5, and open container didn't really seem to fit at this time. So, everyone's right. We got 80 emails, exactly 44, 40 against. That's 50-50. How did the council vote go for the DORA? It was a 4-3, so it was almost 50-50. We did vote for the community days. We're not hypocrites, but the Oktoberfest, the community days, that was a one-time event. That is a roped off area, well patrolled by officers with a time limit. So, downtown DORAs work in some communities, maybe like Cincinnati, but we don't have a professional football team here in Xenia at night. I wish we had a little more activity for our citizens in the evenings, but we'll look at this issue in the future and definitely look at both the pros and cons.
Okay.
Thank you.
So this issue where there's some differences, so let me throw a hypothetical at you. If you are elected or reelected and DORA does come to the table again, let me ask you 2 questions. Would you want it to go to the voters? Raise your hand, please. If it comes again, let's say hypothetically, it does come again, would you want it to go to the voters? Okay, we can see differences. There's all I'm doing. All right, now, hands down. And one other question. If for some reason it can't go to the voters, and I don't know anything about that, would you vote for DORA personally if it came back in the way that it was presented several months ago? So it can't go to the voters. Let's just say that's against the law or something. Can't go to the voters. Would you personally vote for DORA if it's presented in the way that it was presented back several months ago? Would you raise your hand? Would you be for it? Okay. I'm sorry, am I confusing?
So, communities are allowed to vote on this issue. Troy is going through this right now, and it is an issue that you go through Troy and you see big white billboard signs that say vote yes, and you see big red signs that say vote no. I think that's...
Try to get your personal opinion.
Oh, okay. I'm like, it could go before the voters.
Okay. And it's 8:29. I have one more question to ask. There's only reason your question wasn't asked is because I've got a list of a bunch here, okay, and I had to make choices. This will be the last question of the evening. Money's a big issue. There's never enough money to go around, okay? We want to do this, we want to do that. We all know we need more roads, and there's $2.2 million here, but that may do for 1 year, and what are you going to do for going on? And we're going to start with Sarah. Are you willing to make cuts to the city budget to take care of some of the things that we've talked about here that need to be taken care of?
Absolutely. We look at the budget very carefully every year. And if there
can,
are cuts to be made, I think everybody up here, and I can't speak for everybody, is there a willingness to make cuts where needed?
And can you say, are there specific areas you know that we can make those cuts?
Are there specific areas at this moment? There's not at this moment, in the context that we go through our budget very carefully, and we are putting every dime we know how to put towards roads. We have made those cuts. We have made those choices. We use every grant dollar we can come up with. I mean, I've said this a couple of times. Over the last few years, our city staff has been awarded $4.7 million in grant funds. Those are competitive funds, and that takes a lot of effort. We have used every dollar we know how to use. We've talked about, in fact, I had this conversation literally with a citizen today. You know, our water funds are doing pretty well. You can't put water funds towards the street unless you're going to do some work with the water. So there's one street in particular he was asking about. And I said, you know what, that's a great question, because we have a water main that needs to be replaced, and we're going after some really specific grant funds. It's going to take time, but then that frees up those dollars we can put towards the street. So absolutely, I think you have to look under every rock, and I do believe that we do that.
Okay. Dale, same question. Are there any specific areas that you would be willing to say, we can take some money from here and put it over to here for roads or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know if people know this, but 143 of the 210 employees in Xenia made 100,000 plus. That does not include benefits. Our benefits, that amounts to about 35,000. We had a a fire captain that made 164,000, much more than our city manager. 164,000 plus his benefits, that's $200,000 a year. Now, when I left council, we was addressing this problem. We was addressing overtime. Overtime needs to stop in this city. I mean, 143 people making 100,000 plus. So yes, there's where I would start with our budget.
Okay. Will?
Yeah, three specific areas. So we've got, I talked about we got to stop building infrastructure out that we can't support. But the other thing is we need to let go of some infrastructure that made sense in the decades of the past doesn't make any more sense now. So I don't know if you guys know this, but everybody in the 911 call center is a Xenia City employee. And they don't just answer calls in Xenia, they answer calls for, I know Gene's here, the sheriff's here, I'm not, we answer every call for the sheriff across the county. We answer for all the municipalities on the eastern side of the county, and we're not getting equity in terms of that, okay? So right now we're renegotiating that contract, and we need to make sure that we're not losing $300,000 a year supporting other municipalities. That's just crazy, okay? So, and we may need to tell some municipalities we're not going to support you on the calls anymore. That's how it goes. Every member of the Xenia Municipal Court is a city employee. We pay for all their salaries. And that's per state Ohio Revised Code law, okay? That's designated City of Xenia as a municipal court. But we just don't deal with things within Xenia. We basically are the municipal court for everything on the eastern side of the county and over. And we are not getting the funding back from those townships and cities to pay our fair share. We're underwriting them about $500,000. Bill Dean's here right now. We need some help from the state legislature point, and we've been working with the folks in the Fairborn Municipal Court, same problem. And the last part is non-emergency EMS calls. And part of the reason we have overtime is our non-EMS calls have been increasing by 10% a year, okay? And we need to stop being the transport for a lot of folks that it's not really an emergency, okay?
Thank you, Will. Levi?
Eventually I'll put the mic back to the right side. No, it's all right, so am I. Yeah, I would be willing to make tough cuts if we had to. As we talked about with the grant funding from the federal vaccine, we might have to. It might be coming up sooner rather than later, and we're probably going to have to look at that here shortly. I think another few places that we can save money, I mean, the court system, yeah, we're losing out on that. That's all in the state government, though. They would have to make that change, not us. But something else is a fire district. Currently, we have a fire station north, south, east, and west if we combine the township. We've got two, they've got two. We could combine, form a fire district. We might have to put some of our egos aside in both the city hall and the township administrator on both ends. But if we formed a fire district, we would have better service delivery for the citizens of Xenia at a more efficient cost. And anytime you can do that, it's a win-win. That's one big thing. Another thing is we've got a lot of parks here, and some of them are great, and some of them aren't really. We just don't have enough resources to put into the parks. I think we take 5 or 6 parks, we spend most of our resources in there, and the other parks, we don't divest of them, but we partner with people like in the faith community, churches, businesses, whatever, They adopt a park. They help us with programming there, the community, and they help, take care of the playgrounds or whatnot. We don't have enough staff or money to take care of all the parks we've currently got. We've got one park worker that, we could send him out at Shawnee Park and he could work there all day, 7 days a week. He's still not ever finished. So those are a few of the things for sure.
Thank you, Levi. Ethan.
Yeah, absolutely. There's things to cut in the budget. You have to go line by line. That's how you do it. That's how I've balanced 8 multi-million-dollar budgets throughout my career. That's how you do it. So I would say, my grandpa always said, who I love dearly, always told me when I was a boy, if you watch your pennies, your dollars will take care of themselves. $5,000 a year is estimately what we spend on city council cell phones. I mean, if we can't take that away, or a stipend for a cell phone if you're not using a city cell phone, but if you take that away, like if you can agree that should go, if we're in a budget mess or in budget troubles, then you're never going to agree on the big stuff. If you can't tackle the small problems, you're never going to tackle the big issues. So, this might be a sacred cow issue, but I believe sacred cows make the best hamburger, and I'm going to tackle it.
Wes.
All right, so City of Xenia's economic viability is on top of mind all the time as a council member. I sit on Budget Finance Committee. Right now, for the next 5 years, we are actually projected to have a positive cash flow, and we are meeting our reserve requirements. This year, for 2021, we spent almost $2 million towards streets. We know that's not enough. It actually would take about $3 million per year over the course of the next 30 years just to get our PCI compliant up to standard for our roads. So we know the voters voted down the street levy in 2018. We're looking for other ways to generate resources. But it's pretty tough because I'll tell you what, 83% of our budget is personnel. Most of those personnel are fire and safety. And those people are protected with union contracts. Those contracts are negotiated every year with the city. With those workers, they're guaranteed 2% raises, and that they're certainly welcome and deserving of those raises because they're putting themselves out there every day to keep us safe. But a lot of the overtime that you've heard over the last year, that's because of COVID. When people are removed from working, it puts a lot of stress on the rest of the department to cover minimum manning and staffing. So that's what's created the additional overtime. And I don't have a city phone, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Wes. Jeremy, you'll get the last word on this.
All right. So I am pro fiscal responsibility and pro balanced budgets. I believe a great place to start would be for City Council to coordinate with county and school officials over shared service areas, thereby saving taxpayers more money. However, I am passionately opposed to government waste. For example, City Council has voted to approve funding for abortions and transgender reassignment surgeries. Levi voted to stop it, but in contrast to the rest of them, I want to codify into law to prohibit the funding of nonsense like this on the taxpayer dime.
Well, that opens a whole nother can of worms right there that we could go a lot longer on. Okay. I would allow. I would like, just to make sure, I would allow everyone to respond to that comment, and just if you could do it in 30 seconds, please.
Okay, that statement's ridiculous. Never in the 12 years I've been on council have we voted to fund any abortion or transgender surgery. I don't know where that's come from. We've also never talked about defunding the police department. We're here to keep you safe. So
30 seconds, Ethan. Anything about that?
I would never vote to fund abortions, period. I know that cities do through Ohio Medical Mutual. It's part of your insurance on page 153 of your insurance packet. And if you do the research and you read, most cities do, actually. I think 46% of cities partner with Medical Mutual. I have experience in dealing with this. And so, I mean, I don't know if Xenia exactly did it, but it sounds like it did with Levi. So, and he ended it. That's what it sounds like. So, yeah, I would never vote to fund it. I would make sure to read our city contract and codify it in law.
Got it. Will?
Yeah, so I don't think anybody up here is in favor of that on the council. Okay, I asked the city manager, has this ever come up from an individual raised the council? He said no. Okay, I've only been in council since January, but I haven't heard any discussion about this at all. I asked our personnel director, has any of the bargaining units brought this up in any of the bargaining times? She said, never in the history of the city has this been brought up as a bargaining issue. So, yeah, so I'm not in favor of this. I'm also not in favor of the poor boys running the police department, but that's not an issue right now.
I understand.
So.
Levi.
Yeah, so when I was first elected in 2017 and sworn in 2018, in the current city insurance employee code, the city funded elective abortions and transgender reassignment surgery. I put a stop to it administratively. I don't know why it passed through the cracks with the other council members. I'm not accusing them of being pro that, but it did pass through the cracks. They didn't notice it. I did put a stop to it. So it was there before when I got elected, and I
Okay.
did.
All right, Mayor.
I will just say in response to that, I don't have any recollection, and I would love to go back in the minutes to see how you pointed it out to council so that we made an informed decision, because I don't remember you ever specifically discussing that.
Real quick, Levi.
Well, no offense to any of the current members of council when I was first elected, but when I was first elected, because of my age, I felt like some things that were my ideas weren't necessarily all highly thought of, and lots of them were shot down because of my inexperience. So instead of bringing it before council where it might be possibly shot down, I thought it was too big of an issue to bring before council, so I did it administratively with the city manager.
Okay. All right, and Sarah, to Jeremy's comment, anything that you would like to make on that?
That has never been a point of discussion on council. That's never been brought to the forefront. That's not something that has ever been a part of our discussion, ever.
Thank you. And Dale.
If I'm elected, I met recently with Amy Brewer, the mayor of Lebanon. She's the first mayor in the state of Ohio to make Lebanon a sanctuary city for the unborn. If I'm elected, that'll be my first order of business for Xenia, is to make Xenia a sanctuary city for the unborn. So I think you know the way I stand on this petition.
Okay. Let's thank the candidates for coming out tonight. If your question did not get asked, I'm the only one to blame, so don't be mad at anyone else. If you have a question that you would like to ask any candidate after this is over, I encourage you to stay, encourage them to stay as long as there's questions. Okay, thanks for coming out. Thanks to the candidates.